asked my children to try not to scream because I was going to record something. So we can have a little bet, you and I, as to whether or not you hear them during this recording. I guess we'll see. Oh, I am so tired. I'm so tired. After nearly making it to remission, I had a massive Epstein-Barr flare from just several stressful months. And it's kicking my backside still. It's really frustrating. But I just thought I'd come and talk for a few minutes about some projects I have going on. I'm trying in my illness and not feeling great and all of that, and that I'm also still trying to keep some sense of myself. I don't know if anybody understands what I mean by that, but I just don't try not to get lost in it, even though I just want to kind of curl up and die. I'm trying to still prioritize the things that are important to me and try not. I don't know how much of this you can hear. I don't know if you can hear any of that or not. Kaylin's playing guitar and stomping and singing rather loudly, while other people are also talking loudly and such. Some people are harmonizing. Oh no, a different song's going on with somebody else. This is my house. Anyhow, I feel like the last several years have been so stressful, and there's been so much going on that I've been letting the urgent take the place of the important. So I'm trying to find small ways of not doing that as much, of counteracting that, of getting back on track, of getting back to doing the kinds of things that are important to me and important to our family life. Anyhow, I didn't even mean to be talking about this, so never mind. You know, it means a lot of different things that aren't necessarily about crafting, but also kind of trying to hold on to my identity and not just being lost in a sea of exhaustion is one of the things that I have deemed important to myself for my own personal well-being and mental health. So I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see everything because the snow behind me is kind of blinding. I think you can kind of see it better when I move out of the way. Yeah, we're quite snowy now. And it's making for interesting recording conditions. So first up, I guess backstory, I got a gift from a friend of a box of gorgeous yarn. It was a very, very, very sweet and thoughtful thing. I kind of inherited it. Her mother was a avid knitter and passed away, and she sent some. She figured I would be able to use some of her stash, and I am plowing through it. Let me tell you, it's all gorgeous, expensive yarn of the type that I don't buy because it's too expensive. I can't justify it. So it's really a treat. So Serafina's sweater, which I featured in one of the Advent videos, came from that stash. But a lot of the yarn is smaller. There's a lot of minis in it, or there's some left over from projects, or just a single ball or a single skein of yarn. So one of my thoughts that I had with it was that I would start in on a blanket for Elijah in stripes, which is something I've been just wanting to do for a while, and that was what I thought of when she asked, "Do you want these? These onesies individual, these singles and things like that." So some of it will be hats or gloves or other little accessory things, other little projects, but a lot of it's going into a blanket. I just started this blanket last week, and what started it off was elbow patches. This is my everyday sweater. I don't know if other people have everyday sweaters, but I most certainly do. I would say my entire adult life there has been a sweater around that I was wearing most days of the year. Very, very rare that I don't wear a sweater, but I have one usually go to around the house, most of the time sweater. I have others for different things, but one very practical sweater. And this is my current one. If you'll be able to see it. It's called the No Frills Cardigan. It has pockets, which is very useful. It's very long. I can't stand up on my toes high enough for you to really see how long. And I think I finished it 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe. So in that time, it has seen a whole lot of wear. And it's starting to show. So I guess a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, I went in and, some of the joins and things were starting to wear thin. So like the cuffs, there were spots that were starting to wear thin. So I repaired those. There was a small pull in the back. I repaired that. But the elbows were really wearing thin. That's where my everyday cardigans were at the elbows. And I know when the elbows start to go that it's time to start knitting a new one. That's my rule. So I'll mend the old one, but I'll start knitting a new one as well because it's going to take me a little bit of time. I haven't done that yet. I haven't decided what I want necessarily yet. I have looked at a bunch of things. But this was the mend on those, and this is yarn from that stash that I was telling you about. But the funny thing about this is that as I was working on those patches, it was kind of my intention to finish the patches so that I could use the rest of the yarn to work on that blanket, which I hadn't started yet. Okay, so I finished the patches, started the blanket. The rest of the yarn from this went into that, and much more, as you'll see when I bring it out, which I'm not ready to do yet because I wanted to talk about some of my older projects and some that aren't even my projects. It's kind of, I think, become this thing in my head, a life goal, that having a scrap blanket on the go at all times is just a necessity for me. Sorry, if I do not drink, I will lose my voice. And I just thought I'd share how that's kind of worked out in some cases over the years, and some of the stories behind and ideas behind various blankets, because perhaps it'll be inspiring. So I've got a pile of blankets behind me. So the first one I did not make. Ian and Elijah, those great big man-children of mine, made it for Galen's 7th birthday. And it's a rainbow. Not sure how well that's focusing. So what they did for this. So it was Galen's 7th birthday, and it was my idea. They were asking what to do for him, and I had this idea. 7 years old, the 7 colors of the rainbow, the whole crossing of the rainbow bridge for those of you of a Waldorf persuasion. And this, so he will be 16 in a couple of weeks, Galen will. So this is rather old. And it's quite felted in places at this point, and stretched into funny shapes. I believe it's been through, it was on a kid's bed, very active use, so it had to be washed at times due to sickness and things like that. So it's seen its fair share of wear. And under this blanket, I'm quite hot, so I'm going to slip this off. So what they did was they got 7 bags of yarn. They got 7 bags, just 7 bags. And into each bag, they sorted my scraps. So each bag was a color. So all of the reds, they put in one bag. All of the oranges in another, and so on, with yellows, greens, the different shades, blue, indigo, violet, right? And then each of them basically started knitting a scarf, essentially. They each knitted a strip of one color, of whatever came to hand from that bag. So somebody took the yellow bag and started pulling yellow, started knitting. And somebody took a green bag and the blue bag, and started knitting. And then in the end, they sewed each strip together. And that's how you get that effect of the rainbow. So you know all about one of my more recent ones. I think I might have featured it. I know I've talked about it a few times recently. I think it might have been the first of the Advent videos that I talked about it, the one with all of the fringe. That one's gigantic. It's probably, I've not measured it, but I think it's like the size of a queen size bed covering. And that was just, I explained how to do it in that video, I'm pretty sure. If not, call me on it. So the next one is something that was actually inspired by Alicia Paulson of Posy Gets Cozy fame. And she at one point in time was talking about crocheting her daughter a blanket in the colors of a Beatrix Potter book. And I don't know, that just got into my head. She actually never finished the project. I mentioned that to her because she said, yeah, that's on deep slumber. But I did. It just got into my head. And so Serafina was fairly little at the time, and so I made for Serafina a crochet scrap blanket. And this one, it's a very basic, I'm picking off fuzz. I should have probably looked at this before I brought it out in more detail. It could use a little cleaning up. Anyhow, that would be this. She tied a piece of yarn to the corner here. I have no idea why, and I just haven't taken it off yet. So this one is a twin size blanket, and I'm actually very fond of this one. See if I can get more on the screen. No. So I had my color scheme, as I said, based on Beatrix Potter illustrations. The whole thing's just double crochet, and I just crocheted for as much yarn as I had. And I did actually, because I wanted to finish this for her birthday, I did actually end up buying a couple of just random balls of yarn to add to it. But I also used up all of my kind of pastel skeins in it. So like I said, just double crochet until I ran out of an individual color, and then start a new color. And then for the edging, went around and did a single crochet in one color all the way around. Did I go around twice? Maybe twice, yeah. And then this pretty scallop edging. Really like the scallops. I think they're pretty. And one thing that I love about this section up here is my favorite part, the very top here, like that much, is my favorite part. And part of that is because it reminds me of this. And this is a doll blanket that was made by my great-grandmother for my mother. We have two of them, with one in shades of green and this one. She was knitting, or she was crocheting baby blankets for my mother's first nephew. She's one of 7. She was next to the last, so she was quite young when she became an aunt. Same thing with my sister, actually. My youngest sister is closer in age to both Ian and Elijah than she is to me. Galen finally broke that. Anyhow, and she had leftovers, and she crocheted towel blankets for my mom and her little sister. And so this is kind of a piece of family history for me. And one of the funny things is that she used a combination of yarns. And so this is probably acrylic, I'd say, of some sort, the white, but the blue and the pink are wool, and I don't know if you can see that. So the blue and the pink felted over the years, and the acrylic did not. So it has kind of an interesting texture. Anyhow, the pale blue and white, and all reminded me of that and made me very fond of it. I like that. I like the beginning of all these blankets the very best. I have found, because I think I get overwhelmed with all of the colors and all of this stuff, and I like things fairly simple. And I'll find the first few rows or the first few sections will be this like really beautiful color combination, and then it starts getting wild to me, even though it might not be that wild. So I have that funny little thing, and it's true of the one I started now recently too. Anyhow, so I always, when I put it on the bed, I always put this at the top. So that is Seraphina's blanket. And that was, I finished that up for her 3rd birthday, I think, I believe. And she, for that birthday, she was getting pretty big, and we packed away the co-sleeper and surprised her by putting up, I had a bed frame around that I painted pink and distressed. Other people helped with the painting. I did the distressing. And so I finished that blanket, and I made her a quilt. And so as a surprise, we set up her new big girl bed, basically, for her 3rd birthday. So when she was born, we had a baby blessing ceremony. I have so many words today, I'm sorry. And I had this idea to ask people, instead of gifts, to bring a piece of fabric, and especially a piece of fabric that had some kind of significance for me to put into a quilt for her. And they were supposed to, I had a thing set up, they were supposed to pin a blessing onto it, write a little blessing for her, write a thought for her or something and pin it to their fabric. And then I would sew up all of their fabric blessings into a quilt to wrap her in. So that was the idea. And we did do that. People didn't get the blessing idea very much. So there wasn't a lot of that part, but that was okay. It was still, fabrics from people who loved her. And people from far away also sent fabric, who couldn't be her the blessing, which was really sweet. But what happened was a funny little thing. I did give an idea of a color scheme. Don't feel tied to this, but like these general colors. And so that helped it to be a little more cohesive and not as wild. I really had this funny, I loved this idea, but I struggled with it at the same time. I had to sit myself down and go, okay, can I handle this? What if I hate the fabrics that come? Can I handle that? Can I handle putting them together still? Can I not be a control freak about this? Can I deal with that? Tells you a little something about my character. At least at the time, I'm a little mellower now. Anyhow, so it was a beautiful, 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 lovely blessing ceremony. Maybe I'll put some pictures in here. I don't know. And everybody was really into the idea of the fabric and brought fabric. A lot of people brought fabric. And then what happened was my mom didn't like the fabric that she brought with everybody else's fabric. Okay, so she said, use it for something else for her. I'm getting something else. I'm using something else. Okay, fine. So I did. I made her a little pouch, a little snack bag thing for carrying snacks places out of that. And my mom found other fabric eventually, and it's lovely. It's she got a lot of it. That was actually that one, which shows up in the quilt a lot. She got a lot of it. There was like 1.5 yards of it. She got it at an Amish market. And that's really pretty. So that shows up a lot in the quilt, which was nice too, because it kind of pulled it together. I have a few fabrics that repeated several times. But that happened, and also my sister Rachel hadn't been able to come up to meet Serafina yet. She was meeting her that weekend of the blessing, and she wanted to meet her before she picked her fabric. But between the two of them, it meant I didn't have their fabric to start a quilt, and we don't live close together. We live several states apart, so it takes a while. We hadn't seen it. It was a while before we saw each other again, so it was a while before I got the fabric. This was what Rachel ended up going with. She has been collecting plaids to make herself a quilt, and she liked the idea of sharing a quilt with some quilt pieces of the quilt with Serafina. So we made sure there was some for each of their quilts. Anyhow, it took a while before they got theirs to me. And originally I was going to make like a crib size quilt, like a doll, or not a doll, baby quilt. I'm really tired. I don't know if you understand. I'm really tired. My brain is not working. I was going to make a baby size quilt, like a crib size originally, and it was going to be, I was actually going to do hexagons, I think. And by the time I got the fabrics from my mom and my mother and my sister, I was thinking, gosh, she's growing so quickly. Does it make sense to start a baby quilt at this point? And it just didn't feel like it did. So what I did instead was I kept gathering fabric. And I put aside the scraps from all the dresses I made her and things like that. And so then I ended up making a whole, this is quite wrinkled, but a whole twin size quilt. All right, that's the right direction, that's up and down. I really don't know how to properly show this. Move this stool out of the way. Anyhow, you get the idea. You might not be able to see it all. So it has a lot of bits and pieces and history in it. Bits from my daddy's work shirt. My friend sent a bunch of leftover fabric from things that she had made for her daughter, sewn for her daughter, including fabric that they had dyed. I don't know if you can see the colors on that. A lot of, like I said, dress violets, Serafina Violet Juliet. I made a bonnet for Mari out of this that Serafina also wore. This was a dress that I made for her. This was leftovers from a hand-me-down dress that she wore that was Mari's. That's a dress I made from her for out of a sheet. This is a dress from another sheet. This one, I don't know if anyone remembers any of these, but this I made myself a dress out of a sheet, and Elijah made her a matching one out of the same sheet. And this was also, this our neighbor was here doing some work. She's a contractor, and she was using this sheet as a drop cloth, and I said, that is too pretty to use as a drop cloth, and she gave it to me. And I made the girls matching dresses for Easter one year. So that was that one. This was a scrap from Mari's favorite dress at the time that just had fallen apart and wasn't salvageable. This one's my favorite, one of my favorite. There's 3 pieces of this one. So I wanted people to send things with meaning that meant stuff to them, and most people just kind of went to the store and picked out fabric. But this, my Aunt Sue collects dolls, and this is part of a doll blanket from when she was a little girl. So there's bits of that one around, and I used to play with her doll collection when I was little. So that felt really meaningful to me. Anyhow, you get the idea. I'm gonna find there's scraps from her first dress. This one with the sheep, I love that one. She was born in lambing season, and kind of always associated that time of year with her, anything having to do with sheep. She was a lamb for her first Halloween. But this was actually left over from a quilt that I made for Galen. So they also share. They also share a patch. Oh, this is from the first dress I ever made her. I don't remember what it was called, but it was this fabric line that was like lace. It was supposed to be like a lace print on it, but there were figures from nature hidden in the lace, and this one had butterflies. You can see the top of the butterfly there. Yeah, this one's part of Mari has this one in her quilt that I made her. Anyhow, I could do this all day, and you don't need to hear that, but there is bits from, I don't know if anyone's around and remembers, but at this time Elijah was making a lot of his own shirts, and that was his contributions were leftover scraps from his shirts. Ian made a costume for a stilt walking show because he did stilt walking for a while, and there's a piece of the costume in here. Yep, all sorts, all sorts of things. Anyhow, so that's Serafina's quilt and blanket. Just old projects. And this is the new one. So one thing that I learned from my experience of making a scrap blanket is that it takes a long time because you're waiting for, as you finish projects, you're adding scraps to it, and unless you have a lot of scraps to begin with, it's probably going to sit for a while. And also for me, it's kind of not, it's not a main project. It's what I do, just pick up occasionally because I'm feeling like it. So I learned with the fringe one, which is right over there, that I talked about before, to keep it in something protective, because what happened with the fringe one was it was in a cloth bag, a giant cloth bag, and I hadn't worked on it for months and months, and at some point in time mice must have gotten into it and chewed a bunch of holes in it before it was even finished, which was devastating. So I now protect it. We live in the woods, people, mice happen. And this was pre-cats. So that was really unpleasant to find it like that and to end up like washing it in the bathtub, trying not to pull out more stitches where the holes were. Oh, it was awful. So I have a designated bin this time. And it's also where I'm throwing the bits of yarn that I'm using. So I promised myself, I told myself I was going to work in the ends as I did each section, and I haven't at all, which of course, like, that was totally predictable. You all knew I wasn't going to do that, right? So this is what I've got so far. I haven't decided, I may have made it too wide. I'm not sure. I haven't actually measured it on a bed. I just kind of started going. Yep. That's it. This is going to be for Elijah. Elijah is the only child of mine who I haven't managed to make a quilt for. We started working on a quilt together, the two of us, a lifetime ago. And then, I don't know, we both got busy or something and it never got finished. So I thought you should be next in line. This is my elbow patch yarn. And see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I was so in love with it when it was just this like green and red and the rust. And then all these other, and it is neat and it is beautiful, but I'm not as in love with it as I was at the beginning. So that's where it's at so far. It's going really well. It's fun. It's really cozy. It's a really cozy project to be working on right now. And there's a bunch of yarns from my friend. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. But there's also, you know, leftover yarns of mine. This was Mari's, the sweater I made for Mari's 5th birthday. This was a sleeper that I knitted for Serafina for Christmas. These were booties for Serafina. This was a sweater for Ian. This was a sweater of mine. So, a sweater I finished for my friend Kathy. Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about a scrap blanket is that I can look at it and think those things. So I keep holding it up to him and saying, "It's not too loud, is it?" And he says, "No, no, no, it's fine." Okay. But I feel like I need more red right now, which is I've put it aside because it needs red before I go further, I think. And one of the things that has come up is that sometimes I'm putting some of these yarns in here and then I change my mind. So like this one, I went halfway across a row and then went, you know what, this is just too pretty and too soft and it shouldn't be hidden in a mush-mash of a blanket, and I want to make something else out of it, like maybe a hat or something like that. So I ripped it back out. There's a lot. She had a lot of, I'm not familiar with, I wasn't familiar with Tessa's designer yarns, and she had a lot of stuff from her. And there's some really nice yarn in there, so worth looking into, people. So one of the things I had was this. And it's Madeline Tosh vintage. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's moth prevention. Although Darcy, my cat, keeps picking up the bags and running them all over the house. And sometimes trying to get the yarn out of them. So yeah, Madeline Tosh hand-dyed yarn, Tosh vintage in Blood Runs Cold, and it's a merino. And so I had this. I thought I was really back and forth on it because it's really nice yarn and it's really expensive yarn, like of the kind like especially for me, like I cheap yarn for me, because I feel guilty buying anything else. And you know, we're on a budget. And so I was really like back and forth on this because it's like dreamy yarn, but I didn't have anything in mind for it. I haven't been in a red place. And I need it red for the blanket, and I had it there, and wouldn't it be better to use it than to not use it? But do I want to save it for some? Anyhow, I went back and forth, vacillating all over the place on it. And finally, I just decided to ball it, and not make the decision. And while I was balling it, there was something about the shade, the color, like in my hand, that I was just really like digging. I don't know, I guess like that it was good with my skin tone. Let me see. Kind of, yeah, right? That it just complemented my skin tone or something. I don't know, it was giving me like total Snow White vibes. Like the really beautifully illustrated ones. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So I decided to make a hat out of it and possibly a cowl little scarf. I think I have that picked out. I went way back and forth on the hat, couldn't finally decided on something. I'm not sure if it was the right decision. I don't know. I was kind of trying to channel like folkloric vibes, I think. Um, so I just started that with the thought being two things. Yeah, color's okay. Two things. One being that I make this, I'll have the scraps to go into the blanket, whatever's left over. But also my birthday's in like a week and a half and I need a new hat. And so I thought I'd just put things aside and just make a hat for myself. So this is the project that I am setting aside, the project that I was using to procrastinate on the projects that I haven't finished. Some of which I did, not all. And so for the green, I don't know, too Christmassy. I kind of liked the contrast though. So for the green, I'm using this, which is a Jameson. Hear me when I turn away from the computer, I wonder. So Jameson's Shetland wool, also from my friend. Does it have a color? Moss. In moss, held with this, which is a lace weight from Knit Picks that I don't remember the name of or the color. But that's what the green is in the hat. And that's where I'm at. I will go back to my other projects at some point. I've been so tired and it's just been like winter hibernating. I wanted comfort. And that blanket was such a cozy project that I actually, as you can see, in a week and a half, made quite a lot of progress on. All right, blathered long enough. I will talk to you soon. Hope you're doing very well and that you have some kind of fun, comforting project going on now as well. And if you wanted to tell me about it, I would love to hear. Happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy living.